let's get off well.
Greetings viewers, now that I here to bring you some of my Foxy thoughts. Originally, we were going to get quite a different video, my thoughts on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Unfortunately, I had a memory leak and lost all the files I had. I thought it was going to be such a good video too. If anything, the experience told me to back up my files in the future. Now I could have gone ahead with the original plan, but then I would just be repeating what everyone else was reviewing the game has said. So instead I decided to talk about various Pokemon from Generation 9. So let's begin, shall we? Reed Kitty here was primed for an image like this.
Explica, 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 explica,
Too bad the dub didn't come close to that for the voice. Frigatito is an adorable little grass-type kitten, and Masquerada, as we first Anthro star the Pokemon fandom, hasn't hated since X and Y. If you don't think a street magician cat is a really cool idea, I'm gonna find out where you live and tell you you're wrong to your face. Masquerada's aesthetic and animation are awesome. Its animation for its signature move Flower Trick has a lot of character. If the game's ever put out a patch to fix all the bugs, I'm definitely gonna play the game just to have this starter, because I haven't been this enraptured with the final stage for starter Pokemon since Decidueye. And as for Florigato, it's an okay middle stage. It serves as a decent transition. It's just that until Lyco Sprigatito evolved in the anime, I think a lot of the fandom's attention was focused on the first and third stages of this evolution line. I honestly didn't care much for the new deck Pokemon, and didn't think that much about Quaxwell either. Then I saw Quaquaval, and while my opinion of the entire line wasn't entirely changed, I found myself wanting a Quaxley simply so I could get this big campy water bird, styled after Mardi Gras dancers. I've heard people complain, it doesn't look like a duck anymore. You do know that's meant to be a water-type peacock, and that other types of waterfowl exist, yeah? Quaquaval is clearly a little walker or a coot, which are water birds with large or widespread toes. It also takes inspiration from a dance-themed style of martial arts, hence why it's a water fighting type Pokemon to counter the dark grass Masquerada. So that's 2 generations in a row after giving us pretty awesome final stage water type starters. It's my boy! Derposaurus Applegator Fuecoco. Pokemon doesn't have fire type starter reptile since Charmander, and I love how adorable this little critter is. Horizons and Paldea Wind have made this little pepper dino an even more endearing bundle of fire-breathing adorableness than it already was, which is why I believe a lot of people chose it as their starter. Now, aside from the first 2 gyms of the game being weak to fire types, all I have to do is look at Salditch and say to myself, yeah, if anything looks like it could naturally learn Fire Fang, it'd be a flame-breathing crocodile. When it comes to the middle stage, though, I don't hate it, and I understand the symbolism. I just don't care for it that much in terms of design. It looks a little too goofy. And keep in mind that I'm the kind of guy who unironically likes Rhyperior and Light Licky Licky when it first came out. As long as I'm talking about negatives with designs, I sort of not a fan of the flames on the side of Scudder's head, since they look a little too blocky towards the ends there. It's kind of the same issue I have with the hair coming out with Delphox's ears. That's a video for another day. As long as we're talking about my boys, Clodsire. Hooper is one of the very few regional variants we get in this game, killing a mud-colored ground poison type, befitting the Pokedex entries to talk about classic Wooper being covered in the poisonous mucus when out of water. But instead of a Paldean Quagsire, we got a brand new evolution called Clodsire that took the internet by storm and replaced Quagsire as everyone's most beloved salamander Pokemon. No offense to Quagsire, I still like it, but Clodsire beats it in terms of charm that I can't even explain. Not only is it based on the Japanese giant salamander, but also a newt that can puncture its own skin with sharp spines as a form of defense. Only difference being that these spines are poisonous. Clodsire can sort of resist grass moves due to its poison typing, although that's also 4 times weak to ground attacks. Oops. If you're going to get a Clodsire, I would recommend getting one that has the water absorbability that takes away its weakness to water type moves. So I don't think I ever really took to Tauros. It's a fine Pokemon, I just don't recall using it in any game. Wow, I truly speak in round sentences, don't I? Then when I saw there was going to be a Paldean Tauros, reflecting the bull-centric events in Pamplona, I still wasn't interested. Until I saw that it came in 3 different variants. The new fighting type, but also the fire and water types. The pure fighting type Tauros meh. It's sort of cool to the water type Aquabri Tauros, maybe based on water buffaloes, but still not really what I'm into. The fighting fire type Blaze breed though. Yeah, I think I can work with this Edgy Bull. Maybe it's the fact that its horns can glow red. Maybe it's the fact that all three of its tails are wrapped together. But there's something about the design that just really appeals to me. Considering that it's a fire type, I just gotta wonder, am I simply into fire? Now for the evolution line that got to be just as popular as Cloudfire. A line of little pink gremlins from an innocent little baby and no-nonsense grade schooler. An adorable anarchist who swims around her giant hammer whenever she sees a bird. No joke, Tigaton will either chase down light sharp and player to hit them with her giant hammer, to strip them of whatever metal they may have, or launch giant rocks at Carbonite to get their metal coating or due to some unspecified rivalry. Some people dislike Pokemon that carry objects, but I honestly find them interesting, and it makes Tinkatink and Tinkaton way more adorable and hilarious than they would have been on their own. I wonder though, are these fairy-type Pokemon also half steel? Just because they work with scraps of metal that they fashion into weapons? Titan is one of the Pokemon out there that certainly puts the monster in Pocket Monster. Who wouldn't want a giant whale monster with horns on its face that stomps around on 2 thick legs? But then we find out that, like with a lot of other cool Pokemon, Titan is actually the evolved form of a smaller, more comical version of itself. Satal, which can evolve via Ice Stone. First Dreadnought, now this. GameFreak stream knows how to get me hyped up with expectations, and then stab me hard across the face. Oh well, one thing I can enjoy about both is that they're apparently a reference to a Japanese cryptid called an Incan, and if you know anything about me, I love learning about spooky creatures that may or may not exist, once the terror within me has run its course. A Ningen is supposedly this white creature that lives in the more frigid parts of Japan that either has human features or, more often than not, is just a whale head stomping around on human legs. The Titan may also be based on narwhals, and its shiny form has the Orca color scheme. I'm honestly mixed on the Gen 9 bug types. Symbol's cute and all, but it doesn't really have the same charm as they bought a Spinnerack. And I feel like Low-Kick could have just been a standalone like Heracross or Pinsir. We've already had cricket Pokemon, so it surprises me that it took so long to add grasshoppers on the list of animals to Pokify. Low-Kicks is an okay Pokemon with decent speed, and being a dark bug type means it's going to be a double threat to any psychic type it may encounter. Unfortunately, I don't see it being a sweeper anywhere outside the psychic type gym and the dark type being star base, but with a bit of training and the right moveset, it could potentially be the Scizor of Gen 9. Every now and then something comes along that makes me question if the creature I'm seeing really does count as a Pokemon. Rivaroom is indeed that type. It certainly was strange when I first saw this critter that was blatantly a steel type that somehow manages to be a poison type as well, and immediately felt that if Ash were still the protagonist of the anime, this is the type of Pokemon that Team Rocket would have to power all their mechs. Then I saw it had a pre-evolution that came into existence when an engine was possessed by the spirit of a poison-type Pokemon, and found myself wishing that this beautifully weird Pokemon had simply been a single-stage creature. As long as I'm on the subject of weirdness, if this thing was originally a car engine, why does it have a tongue? Some people may take issue with the design, but I just embrace the strangeness of it. Another Pokemon I had to question the authenticity of was Gimmighoul, a little ghost-type Pokemon that appeared in the Go games like Meltan did. I don't know why, but something about the design just didn't say Pokemon to me when I first saw it. Now, however, I get the inspiration for its design due to a video I saw from Loxton, and may take inspiration from the old tradition of placing money alongside the freshly dead so they could pay the ferryman of the afterlife. There are exactly 2 types of Gimmighoul. One that will be wandering around the overworld, which can only be obtained, and one that will be found in chests full of gold coins, reflecting the memories of RPGs like Dungeons and Dragons, all with the goal of collecting 999 coins. So your Gimmighoul can use them as a means to evolution and become the ghost steel type Gold Dango. Honestly, didn't care for its design the first time I saw it, though I have gotten used to it over time, and it does have pretty decent stats. Regardless of all that though, I can't honestly say I'd go through all the trouble of coin collecting. To get the evolution when I could just have the basic stage. Trust me, I tried the whole item hunter thing in regard to Zygarde cells. After I failed to find any after using a guide, I decided to just quit. And don't get me started on seeking out with in Legends Arceus. I was first seeing one of the trailers for Scarlet and Violet, showcasing what types of Pokemon could be found in Paldea, and the internet immediately fell in love with this little doughy doggo. He's just a little guy with innocent little eyes, and his surprised look on his little face. Then we found out that this little hush puppy that evolved into a fully baked Pokemon called Dachshund, a clear play on one of my favorite breeds of dog. The fun thing about Dachshund is that not only does it have a well-baked body ability, render it completely immune to fire-type attacks, but those same type of attacks will simply raise its defense by 2 stages. Didn't want my Amba to evolve because I didn't really care for Bolton's design, but I would let my little fighter become a Dachshund due to it being equally adorable. They're fairy type, which is appropriate due to being such adorable little lapdogs. You can use moves like Baby Doll Eyes and play rough. While the line may never be competitively viable like other dog Pokemon, that's just fine with me. While we're on the subject of dogs, meet Greavide. This adorable little ghost-type doggo came out just in time for Halloween, and is a way less malicious version of Litwick, since yeah, the will drain your essence the more time you spend around it, but it isn't doing it intentionally. Honestly, it probably gets pretty lonely once it's drained the life completely from those it's been playing with. And the Pokedex entries say that it's the reincarnation of an extremely loyal dog Pokemon that is seeking companionship. Thank goodness when it evolves in a Houndstone then, since its life drain candle becomes a cartoony headstone jutting out of its cranium. Seriously, GameFreak, stop making ghost-type Pokemon dangerous to be around. Houndstone certainly looks more ghoulish than the ghostly pupper, but it's also adorable in an undead way, being just a skeleton under a mass of fur that takes on a gross moldy appearance of grass in its shiny form. So, Primeape, the Pokemon that can become so enraged over nothing, will literally die from anger. That can actually happen, by the way, due to affecting the heart's electrical system. But you never thought you'd learn anything on this channel. However, it's since been revealed that Primeape doesn't stay dead. There's a third stage of this monkey family, an undead evolution, in the form of Annihilate, which comes back from the dead, even angrier than before. This ghost fighting type is born after a Primeape uses the new move Rage Fist 20 times. Never really thought that Primeape needed an evolution, but I'm not complaining that it got one. Annihilate is still the same old cartoony furball with arms and legs. There's also some level of menace about it. Probably the red glowing eyes that lack pupils, and the bangs that flow above its head as if in an unnatural wind. If you would ask me if I were to raise a Primeape with a chance of getting an otherworldly punching rage monkey, the answer would most definitely be yes. The small line is fine. They're your basic grass types that slowly transition from literal being the waifu of the region, and I can say that the name of the first stage is a lighthearted reference to internet slang like the chonk. Then we get to Dullif, and I can't help but find it adorable. Little thing looks like it could be Steve's shy friend from school, come straight out of Adventure Time. At first I assumed our Bulova was meant to be an olive tree, and I would have made fun for it being smaller than I would have assumed, but no, it's a literal sentient olive branch. I'm sure someone somewhere finds that a neat concept, but you know, I'm sorry, I just can't help but find this to be the least visually interesting grass type out there. While we're talking about grass types, I immediately became attracted to this twin-head plant monster when I first saw it, despite its debatably bland design. You could probably find it wandering around in 3 different areas of the Paldean map, or do the easier thing and catch a Capsicid, evolve it with a Firestone when you feel ready. While Pumpkaboo and Gorgeist were possibly the first grass-type Pokemon to ever use a Fire-type move, Skelvillain is the first ever grass Fire type. I like to imagine that the red head belches out flames off the green head handles off the grass-type moves like Bullet Seed. Skelvillain is on the weaker side of things and one of the worst stats in the game. And yeah, I can agree that it has middle stage energy, but I'm still fond of this 2-headed walking pepper plant. Holy crap, the first non-Paldean Pokemon to be on this list. In fact, considering that Applin is the first stage of this line, would it be more accurate to say that they're Galarian in origin? If you take your Applin to Kikami and expose it to a syrupy apple, it will evolve into a Diplin. It's an okay Pokemon, and I do like the idea that it's based on candy apples you find at festivals. But when you level it up, well, it knows the move Dragon Cheer. It becomes a dragon type, way more interesting than ice type Godzilla. Hydrapple! I'd actually prefer if its official art had also been heads out, but I guess you can't have everything you want. The funny thing is that rather than be another multi-head Pokemon like Dodrio, each head is its own individual creature called a Syrupin that lives in one big apple-shaped glob. And that makes me honestly question how how all the critters can breathe when they're retracted into said glob. Regardless, this has to be one of my new favorite evolution lines of the generation. Nacli is the first rock-type Pokemon that I find completely endearing due to its simple appearance. He's just a little guy who grows around and leaves soul behind it. Its evolved form Knucklestack, though, is a bit more sinister. Pokedex entries say Knucklestack salt dries its prey to drain the fluids from their bodies. It evolves into Garganacl though. We go back to the gentle rock type. Honestly, in terms of design, my favorite member of this evolutionary line would have to be Nacli, again, due to how simple it is. It is pretty cool in its own right. What type would you say Grafaiai is? Psychic? Nope. Ghost? I mean, it's based on the Ai, which are regularly the subjects of bad luck and the superstitions of Madagascar. Nope. Poisoned normal. Seriously, just slapping normal on a pre-existing type. I was thinking when I first saw Grafaiai, I at first thought it had some sort of relation with Smeargle, but both of them being paint-themed primates, though Smeargle is more of a dog somehow. But with the Grafaiai marking trees of its territory by painting them with its own venomous saliva. But no, there's absolutely no relation between either of them. Not even so much as a rivalry over territory, which would have been pretty neat. Back when they animated little teasers for Generation 9, you could catch a glimpse of a Grafaiai in the guidebook James used to have with him. And again, if Ash had stayed the protagonist and gone all the way to Valdea, this could have been foreshadowing of Team Rocket getting their own Grafaiai, but we all know that didn't happen. It's a cute little weirdo in terms of looks, but not sure how long it would last on my team if I ever had one. Diglett, a cute little reference to Whack-A-Mole. So how do you take something that's meant to be a reference to a carnival game and turn it into a garden eel? I don't know either, but GameFreak ran away with Wiglet. Though this water type barely looks anything like an eel, just a stretched out Diglett with white fur. Aside from all the questions that arise in my mind, I guess Wiglet's an alright Pokemon, sent into the internet by someone as announced, and spawned a whole bunch of memes. However, I don't think I would use a Wiglet full time if I had one. On that note, good luck catching a Wiglet yourself, since if it senses you coming, it will retract right down to its little burrow. Speaking of goofy looking wormy things, Worthworm. Don't know why it's just Monosteel rather than Ground Steel, but I don't make the rules of GameFreak. The minute I saw just how doofy this worm monster is, I knew I'd want one. That's it, that's entry, let's move on. First time I saw Wattrel, I said to myself, that looks like an electric type Halo. I assume because of this particular image, and immediately recognized Kita Wattrel as a frigate bird, which is one of the coolest type of seabirds out there. I think they harass other seabird Pokemon for their catches like their real-world counterpart. Kita Wattrel's highest stats are easily speed and special attack, the rest being slightly above average. I assume however good it is in competitive relies entirely on how you use it. It's kinda hard to tell which is meant to be the regional bird from Gen 9, the Wattrel line, or the pairs that stole Corviknight's job as transportation. No, for real, these things stole Corviknight's job that transports people by a sky taxi due to the insane animosity you tend to have towards Corviknight that caused them to launch boulders into the sky whenever they see one. I can suspend my disbelief for a lot of things. Being ferried through the sky by 6 parrots are smaller than the size of an average person is really something that I have to scratch my head about. Apart from all that, Rockabilly come in several different colors, have a different type of meaning. Green is the most dominant, and yellow is the most hostile, which makes me wonder why the one owned by Lyco's mom is so calm. It's funny, a lot of people wanted a Flamingo Pokemon back in Gen 7, and now that we got one, people hate it. Okay, maybe not hate, but there's been an awful lot of, it's just a flamingo. To which I say, Ekans and Arbok are just a purple rattlesnake and cobra, Pidgey's just a thrush, and Goldeen's just a goldfish with a horn. A lot of Gen 1 Pokemon were just cartoonified animals, so why was it okay back then? But now people get upset at a flamingo with a body shaped like a boxing glove, show that it's a fighting type. People also complain that its name is just Flamingo without the N, Seal with 2 E's instead of an A. Dumb names have always been a thing. I'm still not over localizers calling this thing Beastmon. Look, long and short of it is, Flamingo is overhated due to people not getting over its name and its simple design. So a flamingo I feel you could justify being in a location based on Spain, but an ostrich? That might be stretching it. Especially when everything about its Pathride's design screams Egypt. Just like a real ostrich, as Pathright is said to be aggressive, and the thought of a psychic kick-off switch is also kind of terrifying. I really didn't think that GameFreak needed an evolution, but it got one, and Giraffe is really strange to say the least. He goes from an okapi with a chain chomp tail to a giraffe where the tail underwent some sort of mutation, and that it now fully engulfs the neck and head, resembling an astronaut's helmet. I really didn't have any positive thoughts about this creature when I first saw it, but then I reflected on the fact that I am more lenient on Rhyperior and Nicky than most people who think of their terrible evolution designs, and concluded this really may not be as dumb as I initially thought. I have much less charitable thoughts about Dunsparce though. Dunsparce sort of received the Magikarp treatment from the fandom, people believing that this weak creature had some sort of potential once it finally evolved. Maybe it would be a dragon type? No. Instead, what we finally got was just a bigger Dunsparce with more segments, 2 to 3 to be exact, and slightly opened eyes. A lot of people assumed that we were being trolled by GameFreak, and I agree. Just not in a malicious manner, as some people also assumed. On the plus side, it's got decent HP and attack stats. Don't know if that does anything for you, but that's 2 things it's got going for it. GameFreak, I implore you, don't evolve Shuckle. It's fine just the way it is. Charcadet is, to me at least, similar enough to Tyrogue in that this little fire type has a branching evolution. This scrappy little Pokemon evolve either into Ceruledge when donning the malicious armor, which can be obtained after collecting several chipped pieces from Sinistea, or it can evolve into Armarouge after donning the auspicious armor, which can be exchanged for 10 Bronzong pieces. Ceruledge is a malicious, Night-esque, fire ghost type Pokemon that'll do anything to win, possesses 2 bladed hands, formed from a ghastly fire that it uses to extract energy from victims. A merciless fighter, Ceruledge will always exploit weaknesses in its opponents. Given all that, it sort of makes sense that a Ceruledge would be the main Pokemon of the edgelord antagonist in the new anime. By contrast, the psychic fire type Armarouge fights fairly without any underhanded trickery. Just like Ceruledge in its sword hands, Armarouge has its own weapon, arm cannons, that it brings by forming 2 arms together. While both evolved forms of Charcadet have their own value, if you would ask me which I choose, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't going to go for Ceruledge, partly because I enjoyed the fire ghost typing, and partly because I enjoy unironically edgy Pokemon. Considering it was one of the Pokemon showed off in the advertisement, and its Pokedex entry says that people were known to use it as a form of transportation in the early days of Paldea, I mistakenly believe that Cyclizar was more important than it was actually going to be. Turns out, you don't ride your own Cyclizar throughout the region. You ride the legendary that's either its ancestor or descendant instead. The concept of a lizard that flares up its throat sack and curls in its tail to resemble tires is a pretty neat idea. I gotta question why I'd ever want a Cyclizar. I already have the legendary that's vaguely related to it and serves pretty much the same function. Dondozo and Tatsugiri are 2 of the most Japanese Pokemon ever, and if we were still in the era of 4Kids localization, I'm sure the dub for the new anime would try to Americanize them, despite them being a clear reference to a sushi chef and the various types of sushi. Dondozo is easily the biggest Pokemon in Paldea, being a whopping 39 feet and 4 inches. It's actually amazing that there are any lakes deep enough to contain the species. Catfish already get monstrously big, but nothing like this. Despite its size though, Dondozo is actually a quite dull Pokemon, and relies on its partnership with Tatsugiri to find food. To contrast Dondozo, Tatsugiri are only 1 foot and 0 inches, making it one of the smallest dragon types out there. Yeah, Tatsugiri are water dragon types, like Kingdra and Palkia, and I have 0 clue what connection Sushi has with sea dragons, other than that both of them come from the ocean. We got another divergent Pokemon from Kitakami here, a grass ghost type with a name similar to Poltergeist, but with a design similar to its pre-evolved form, Sinistea. Rather than a spirit inhabiting a teapot, however, this Tsukumogami Pokemon's main body is made out of a cracked tea caddy made from matcha tea powder like they used in ancient Japan. According to old Kitakami legend, the first Poltergeist came into being a master of tea ceremony died with a regret in his heart after driving away others due to his obsession with the perfect tea ceremony, his sorrow giving life to this little fella. Poltergeist's powder can repair items and seal cracks, which make it seem like a great Pokemon to have around. We still live in a post-Gen 5 world that says that almost every ghost type now feeds on life energy, and that's what Poltergeist does when people in Pokemon are covered in its powder. Just couldn't leave this as a friendly little tea ghost, could you, Pokemon Company? I do like that it uses this little tea scoop as a wand though, and it's another Pokemon that I wish Scarlet and Violet left as a standalone creature, but they gave it an evolution similar to Poltergeist, and I can't say I'm too fond of it. I'd rather have Poltergeist any day. Pecharunt is another ghost type encounter in Kitakami, though whether it's named for that sub-reason or not isn't clear. Like Poltergeist, Pecharunt is based on Japanese mythology, namely the fairy tale of Momotaro about a boy who was born from a giant peach and went forth to battle a horde of Oni with the help of a dog, a monkey, and a pheasant. Like Momotaro, Pecharunt was adopted by an elderly couple who went off on a grand adventure. Unlike Momotaro though, Pecharunt was not hero material, and instead everyone involved in this story lost everything important to them. Well, that's a down of a backstory. Personally, I find it rather adorable, even if it is unassumingly sister, given its role in the DLC. So, the Loyal 3. In case you didn't tell, these are 3 Pokemon that are based on the companions of Momotaro, and like in the original fairy tale, they're actually more slaves than true companions. Yeah, while touted as heroes by the people of Kitakami, the truth is these 3 are a rather malicious band, having committed assault and robbery in their backstory. All 3 of them are poison types, which you may not get when you first see them, and to be honest, quite a few people assumed that these 3 were going to be the starter Pokemon of the game's DLC. Serendipity is the member of the trio that got my attention the most. Yeah, get all your furry comments out now. Ooh, he was drawn to the feminine-looking bird Pokemon. So tell me, what type do you think Serendipity is? If you said flying poison, you're wrong. It's fairy poison and has a rather vindictive nature. Interestingly, this is much more character with actual fairies, since they could be rather malicious little creatures. Monkey Dory is a psychic type, which makes perfect sense since monkeys are intelligent creatures, and this little macaque likes to act like the brains of the trio, or at least that's the vibe it gives off to me. Okie Dokie is the member of the trio that honestly appeals to me the least, design-wise. I'll defend Anthro Pokemon a lot of the time, but I really don't like how this thing feels like it came out of the My Hero universe. And the fact that its flying type really doesn't do anything to dissuade from people making such jokes. However, considering that Incineroar grew on me, I'm sure if I were to actually use Okie Dokie, I might be willing to overlook the design, but just as likely not, since I initially liked Lucario. But now I can't help but notice that it has shorts made out of fur. Ogerpon is just the most adorable little ogre you will ever see, with the most tragic backstory, because it's tied with Pecharunt and the Loyal 3, and it's based on a Japanese fairy tale, and a bunch of sickos somewhere decided that every fairy tale needs a bit of tragedy. Before the DLC told us Ogerpon's backstory though, a lot of us assumed it was going to be the aggressor of the storyline, and then we learned that it was just a sweet little Pokemon that simply wanted to make friends. This sweet little innocent child of a grass-type Pokemon has 4 masks that allow it to switch type whenever it dons them. Grass, water, fire, and rock. It's far from the first adorable legendary Pokemon out there, but I feel it is the first one with an actual personality that would actually make you want it on your team. I actually almost forgot about this Dark-type doggo, so shame on me, due to our particular Mammostiff being very important to a character's arc. Like the little pup line, Mammostiff resembles an actual dog, which makes it rather endearing once you get over the fact it's got black eyes and slate gray pupils. I've considered myself more of a cat person as I've grown up, but I found myself getting into the charm of a friendly doggo that just wants to make a new pal and willing to defend their families, and Mammostiff definitely follows that dog trait despite being a dark type. Chin Pal. This legendary saber-toothed snow-leopard weasel is said to be the reincarnation of the hatred and anger of those slain by a sword in the snowy regions of Paldea, and belongs to the group known as the Treasures of Ruin. So, fun fact. Sneasel was originally conceived as a Weasley type of creature, before ultimately becoming this sort of cat-looking thing, and I like to think that Chimpao here was somewhat inspired by that design. That, while charming, was also seriously lacking something. Heck, both Sneasel and Chimpao are dark ice types. That can't be a coincidence. Despite supposedly being the reincarnation of a bunch of resentful spirits, Chimpao apparently likes to frolic through the snow, and that's absolutely adorable. Only issue I already have is that the 2 swords that make up its fangs Skewered right to the top of its muzzle, and yeah, I know why. But I just can't help but feel that they look a bit awkward. Wo-Chien is definitely the most interesting gastropod Pokemon out there. Since this dark grass type is just a bunch of wooden tablets that made a bite for itself out of a bunch of fallen leaves and other vegetation. For some reason, I'm always willing to suspend my disbelief for Pokemon like Wo-Chien and Chien-Pao, while finding entries for Pokemon like Phantom and Yamask are hard for me to accept as fact in the Pokemon world for whatever reason. Fitting its dark typing, Wo-Chien will drain the life force of the vegetation around it, making it a symbol of barren fields and withered forests. Oh, and in case you expect me to talk about the other treasures of ruin, I don't care about them at all. I'd rather talk about Saltzbuck and Goldeen than either of them. Paradox Pokemon are, supposedly, Pokemon from completely different points of history. The prehistoric past and the cybernetic future. I kinda don't buy that. Based on a few Pokemon like Fruitbite, who's a prehistoric Grimmungus, Stanley Shocks, which is a ground-type Pokemon, and Walking Wake, which is a dino version of Suicune, leading me to the conclusion that the past is really an alternative universe. I mean, the Pokemon franchise isn't a stranger to that type of thing. But then I look at something like Great Tusk, Slithering or Screamtail, and I say to myself, yeah, that looks like what a prehistoric version of insert Pokemon here might look like. The other side of that coin, well, these future Pokemon are just robots, and that's exceptionally boring. Shinies are all just a robotic metallic silver. They've all got iron at the start of their name, and they're all actually smaller than their present-day counterparts. To be fair though, Iron Valiant, being a robotic combination of Gallade and Mega Gardevoir, is pretty neat, as is Iron Hands having floating detached hands, and the robotic Donphan, but those are pretty much exceptions rather than the rule. If I had to choose which Pokemon I'd rather have, it would be the prehistoric ones due to how varied their designs are rather than the robotic one. And finally we come to the two legendary Pokemon of Gen 9, Koraidon and Miraidon. Say what you want about the writings and the graphics and whatnot, the game at the very least makes the legendaries their own characters, rather than these monsters you must hunt and capture. Rather than just stumble across the legendaries at the end of your journey, for them being the focus point of some villainous team's plot. Meet Miraidon Koraya at the start of the game, become charged with taking care of it by the professor who initially discovered the creature. For the majority of the game, either legendary is more or less more your partner than the starter Pokemon you chose, and will act as your form of transportation throughout the game. And here's what I have to say, I prefer Koraidon to Miraidon. Sure, Miraidon is this robotic Pokemon, but a robot becoming a motorbike is sort of predictable and not that visually interesting. I'm sorry to all the Miraidon fans out there. Koraidon though. Now, this is a design that appeals to me a lot more. A red lizard the size of an average person, with feathers that resemble a headdress. What's not to like? It also gets across the idea that it's just a big finny critter a lot more easily than its robotic counterpart, due to the animations to give it expressions like it's happy and licking someone, although to be fair, the scene always pans upward when that happens, but you know what I mean. Well, this turned out to be longer than I initially thought it would be. If the devs ever actually patch the game so it's as buggy as it currently is, I will 100% play this game. But for right now, I think I'll just admire the Pokemon. This is Night at Eye saying thanks for letting me share my thoughts. Please share yours with me.